Pause for a moment before moving on. Breathe deeply. This message isn't light. It doesn't come from any moment, but from long silences, from distances that were never truly bridged, from words that weren't spoken when they should have been. It comes from a regret held back for too long, and it reaches you now because time for someone is running out. Not in the dramatic sense, but in the more real one, the time when you could have stood still without truly losing something. There's a person who's been holding something back for a long time, much longer than they'd like to admit, longer than you can imagine. They didn't suddenly forget you. They didn't stop feeling something overnight. They didn't move on as they tried to pretend, or as they perhaps wanted to believe themselves. They simply hid emotions they didn't know how to handle. Emotions too big, too uncomfortable, too destabilizing. And what's hidden doesn't disappear. It stays there, it accumulates, it presses, it changes shape, until, sooner or later, it finds a way out. This message arises from fear, not security. Inside that person now, there's no calm, there's no peace. There's confusion in the mind, in the heart, in the body. A constant feeling of restlessness, as if something will never fit. Something changed recently. Maybe she saw something that reminded her of you. Maybe she heard your name said by someone else. Or maybe life slowed down enough to silence the noise, allowing the truth to emerge. Whatever it was, it woke her up. And it wasn't a gentle awakening. What she sees now scares her, the thought of losing you forever. This thought didn't come slowly. It came at night, when distractions no longer work. When looking at your phone no longer provides relief. When laughing with others seems forced. It came in the silence, when questions began to arise without asking permission. Questions that can no longer be answered by pretending. Before you go any further, pause for a second. If this message speaks to you, subscribe to the channel now and leave a like. Help this content reach those who truly need it. And if you like, write "I choose clarity" in the comments. Not for others, for yourself. She's realized something that hurts. No one else is like you. No one listens like you. No one understands without having to ask too much. No one knows how to stay without intruding. No one has managed to make her feel safe without making her feel trapped. And that's where the urge began. Not as a romantic impulse, but as an internal alarm. But this urgency doesn't just come from love. It comes from the fear of losing something that can never be recovered. It comes from the realization that some opportunities never come back the same way. If he could speak without fear and pride, he'd tell you he should have done something sooner, that he should have chosen sooner. He thought he had time. She thought you'd stay, because you've always stayed. She didn't understand how much the silence was hurting you, how the absence of words could weigh more than any conflict. Now she's learning a painful lesson. Doing nothing is also a choice, and that choice came at a real cost. She regrets not being there when it really mattered. For not speaking up when you needed reassurance. For not being honest when courage was needed. Back then, silence seemed safer. Keeping your distance seemed like control. Avoiding seemed like strength. But avoiding doesn't protect. Avoiding procrastinates. And what's postponed, sooner or later, comes back to bite you. She's not someone who doesn't feel emotions. She's someone who feels too many and doesn't know how to manage them without feeling overwhelmed. Opening up meant risking rejection. Showing vulnerability meant losing control. Admitting how much she cared meant looking inside herself, and she wasn't ready to see what she would find. So he let fear decide. He let pride speak for him. He let silence do all the dirty work. Now those choices are taking their toll, one consequence at a time. There's one important detail. He senses that you're changing. You're no longer the same person. Your energy is different. Your reactions are different. Your silence now weighs more than any words you've ever spoken. Maybe you still feel something, but you no longer seek explanations. You no longer justify yourself. You no longer remain suspended in suspense. And that scares her, because she had grown accustomed to your patience, to your understanding, to your kindness, to the fact that you stayed even while she withdrew. She thought you would always stay. She didn't foresee the moment when you would choose yourself. But that moment has arrived, and now she feels it clearly. She's not just afraid of losing you. She's afraid of losing the way you made her feel seen without judgment. She's afraid of losing the emotional security she never knew how to protect. She's realizing something many understand too late. Not all bonds can be rebuilt. Some, once frayed, never go back to the way they were. She wonders if she's ruined the only connection that truly mattered. This question haunts her in quiet moments, when she tries to move on, when she meets new people, when she compares, even unintentionally, and immediately senses the difference. This is where the real urgency comes from, not to control you, not to hold you back. But because he feels that time is no longer on his side, he senses a door closing, slowly, silently, and precisely for this reason, definitively. He would like to write to you, explain, apologize without excuses, without justifications. But the fear is still there. Fear it's too late. Fear you won't feel anything anymore. Fear of showing yourself for who you are and being rejected. So she texts and deletes them. She replays conversations in her mind that never happened. Meanwhile, the urgency grows. This message isn't a promise. It's a confession. She doesn't say everything is solved. She doesn't say everything can be fixed. She simply states one truth. She took you for granted. She understood your value when she felt the loss. And now she fears the damage is irreversible. But what really matters isn't what it means to her. It's what it means to you. This message doesn't tell you what to do. It doesn't ask you to wait. It doesn't demand forgiveness. It simply shows the truth. You were more important than I've ever been able to show. Your absence now speaks louder than your presence before, because absence, when it's conscious, makes noise. And here's the point that many ignore. Feeling urgent doesn't mean being ready to change. Urgency arises when you face the consequences. And consequences don't wait, they don't negotiate, they don't come back. You didn't suddenly leave, you adapted until you couldn't anymore. You stopped filling voids that weren't yours. You stopped sacrificing your peace. You chose yourself. Now you're calm. And calm for those living in emotional chaos is destabilizing. Because clarity doesn't argue, it doesn't plead, it moves forward. Their journey isn't yours. Their urgency doesn't define your worth. You're becoming who you truly are. You don't have to go back to make someone else feel better. The truth is this: you weren't asking for too much. You were asking for security, presence, truth. These are basic needs. The fact that someone understands them late doesn't force you to reopen a door. Walk in truth, not in guilt. You have chosen self-respect, and that doesn't make you hard, it makes you free. If you found this message helpful, please subscribe to the channel, like, and use the hype button. Help this video reach those in need. Thanks for joining us.